Hey Blue Group, I just wanted to go ahead and kind of walk you through a little bit more of the resources for identifying fractions on a number line. We're going to be using those in the upcoming weeks to look at comparing numbers and looking at ways that we can decompose our numbers on our fractions. So what I can look at here on this example is that this particular one is actually comparing our thirds and our sixths. So this will be a great tool that we'll use when we're talking more about comparing fractions and we're looking at equivalent fractions. So we really need to understand the skill of how to put our fractions on a number line. And I wanted to take some time and go over some extra resources. So we'll come back to this document in just a few minutes. But for today's activity, what I actually did was I actually went and we did this one yesterday, and then today I've kind of skipped over to here. So here we're looking at being able to identify missing parts on a fraction number line. So what you'll do is you'll create two sets of cards that match at least 6 different fractions. So you would have 12 total cards. You're going to draw a number line, put a star on one of the fractions, and do not label the others. On a separate card, you'd write the matching answer. So for example, on this number line, I broke it up into, this should actually say, I think it's just putting a tick mark here, but this would be 0 and this would be 1. And we know that this would be broken up into 1 parts, 2 parts, 3 parts. So we know that total there it's partitioned into thirds. So from there I would see, okay, well this would be 0 because we know that that's not actually part of the fraction. That's the beginning point. We always begin at 0. So then this would be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So then I would have this star card here. And then on a separate card, I would have 2/3. And I need to see if I can shuffle them all up and match them up to see how they would line up. So that's kind of the activity today, just to practice with missing numbers on a fraction line. And I actually did find a couple of good quizzes where there's some practice on that. So there are, ignore that dot there. You just go to joinmyquiz.com. I'm going to fix that so that that's not shown. And then here's your code, and then you'd be able to play a quizzes kind of like Kahoot, and it would show me your results, and I could see if you have any issues and what sort of things there. There's also on that additional resource page that I showed you guys yesterday, which I think I just minimized here. There's tons of resources here. There's some worksheets right here. These first two or 3 pages, I believe, are all worksheets. There's a couple YouTube videos, and a Learn Zillion lesson. And then there's 2 Nearpod codes. This first one here is going to be just kind of that basic using fractions on a number line. I'm sorry, that's the second one. There's the first one. So I went ahead and signed in, and here it's just got, we're going to go ahead and get started, skip through some of this stuff, and it's going to review the key information. So remembering how fractions on a number line work, how they're divided up, and then it's going to have some examples where it wants you to fill in those missing fractions on this number line. So you can see here, this is some good practice. You could just use that text tool or the drawing tool and actually draw on there. I'm using my mouse, so it's a little bit trickier. So this is a great resource here. And then it's got some questions for you to answer. And I see all of that, so then I can see what you're doing. This was the second one that's posted on there. So again, it's asking you questions. Where do you think 2/3 would be? So using your pencil, would 2/3 be over here? Probably not. It would be closer to the 1 whole, because we know that 3/3 would be 1 whole. So that's a tool for you. And again, I see all of this that you fill out. It's got a great little review of the numerator and the denominator. Remember, denominator down. So denominator is the down number. And the denominator is the total number of parts. So here's what I referenced yesterday. If you're having trouble visualizing that number line with just the lines on it, here they actually drew it into a box to show you that it's just like a rectangle partitioned into parts. So this one is actually more of a guided lesson. So it's going to actually take you through, and then it's going to remind you, because this is where a lot of our mistakes are, is we want to put that 1/4 in the beginning. So we would say 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5. So then we would say, oh, that's actually fifth. So it would be 1/5. But that's wrong, because we actually want to start at 0. 1/4 is the measurement of this. So it's this actual component right here, rather than just this line. It's just like when we're measuring with a ruler. We can measure with a broken ruler. We just need to count the spaces in between. And that's what these fractions are. These fractions are spaces in between. There's a great little quiz in here too. So those two things are great resources if you're struggling with fractions on a number line and what you can do with those. So let me just go ahead and get rid of this. And then like I said, those quizzes are in there too. So you can look at those. So here we would need to see, this one is what your quiz could look like. But this is going to make it a little bit easy for whoever you are quizzing. If you're quizzing yourself, it's going to make it easy on yourself, but it's going to make it easy on your parents or anybody else too if you put these other numbers in here. This is great for us to practice what number is missing here. Well, I see I've got my 0, I see I've got my 1 whole, and then I see that it's got this 2/3 here. So then that lets me know that I'm missing 1/3. Here's pretty easy again because I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, well, this is going to be 5, 6 because of the fractions here. One of the things though that if you want to make this more challenging is instead of putting 2/3 here, leave a blank box or don't put any numbers at all. Leave this as your fill in the blank with your star, and then they would have to count to figure out what it's partitioned into. So this is partitioned into 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections, so then I would know that this is talking about thirds. Or for this one, I can see it's broken up into 1 section, 2 sections, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to get to that whole. And so then if I just erase all of these numbers here, which this is PDF, so I can't do that right now, but I would erase all of these numbers here, cover those up so that they wouldn't see that part, but only know that I'm missing that 5, 6 there. So it's a good way to practice and quiz yourself on that. I can link this activity if you want to get a head start on this. I would advise not doing the equivalent fractions. We know that equivalent means equal, and equal means the same as. So what this is getting us to realize is that some of our fractions are the same as another fraction. So 1/3 here is actually equal to 3/9. And that's going to be what we're focusing on, I believe, not next week, but the following week. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at whole numbers and decomposing those first. So this is kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but it is a resource that I will provide to you if you request it. If not, go back to that additional resources document. Like I said, there's tons of things on there, worksheets for you to practice that you can go on and actually, let's see if it will open up. Nope, because I'm in my Word document. 1 second. Don't know why it doesn't want to work right now. So again, so this is going to have, here's one right here that has missing sections, but it's giving you that denominator, so it makes it a little bit easier for you. So that's one, that fraction number lines. Here's one where it's broken apart and it doesn't have those denominators, so this would be a great one. I might actually link this to Seesaw. You could use this for your quiz that you're making for yourselves. Here's another one. We're avoiding mixed numbers at this moment, but those are some things that we're going to skip through. Fractions of numbers and learning fractions help. So those are some things on this Math Salamanders page. There's another page, Common Core Worksheets, that I have linked on here that you can utilize as well to get some extra practice if that's something that you're looking for. I'm trying to find some things to post to Seesaw. Remember, in Seesaw, it is in that separate tab. So I'm going to actually jump here, fraction location on the number line. It's going to jump me down. Here's where I can find fractions on a number line. Here's if I'm figuring out what the values are of each tick mark here. This is kind of what your activity is today. Partitioning and labeling. This is where you'd actually have to go through and partition on your own. So again, there are tons. I wouldn't really focus on positive and negative numbers now, or mixed fractions at the moment. We want to just get familiar with the basics before we jump into that. So if you have any questions at all, I'm thinking about trying to host a Blue Group lesson maybe once a week. I'm not entirely sure how to work that out yet, but possibly where we can organize a time where all 5 of us can get together and chat about what we're learning and what questions we have, and then just reach out to me as you see questions and things like that. So, but like I said, I am utilizing those Nearpods to really help us teach the concepts. You could do one a day. You could do any of these worksheets as additional resources if you find that your students are struggling. If you find that they're struggling, take a picture of it, send it to me, and then I'll reach out to them in particular. If you're doing great, awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I know that you guys are hard workers, and I know that this is just extending our concept of fractions in a different format. So I hope that you're being successful, and I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you know that I do miss you guys a lot, and I hope that if you have any questions, you're reaching out to me, or if you're looking for anything beyond this, let me know. So I'll talk to you soon.